Yep, yep. Okay, okay. So it looks like we might be live here. Finally. Different platform today than I'm usually using. First time to go live with YouTube. So I'm just pulling up my mobile here. And okay, it looks like okay. So it looks like we might be live here. Finally, different platform today. Cool. So let's see here. Cool, cool. I think my head's not getting completely cut off here. That's a good thing. All right, guys. So this is going to be a Vinyasa Flow class. We'll go for around 45 minutes or so. And then we'll have a nice little break at the end of Vinyasa time, or Shavasana time. So you want to make sure that you've got a space conducive to doing your practice, a place that's relatively secluded and free from distraction. If you can hear sounds coming from the other part of the house or office or wherever you are, you might consider putting on a little bit of music in the background to kind of muffle the sounds. I do have playlists available on Spotify under LJ Hash. That's me. So if you want to use one of the playlists I put together, you certainly can. Today I'm going to hear it at my place. You won't be able to hear it, I don't think, much. I'm going to keep it pretty low, but I'm going to go with Dark Side of the Moon from Pink Floyd for the same purposes, to kind of mask the sounds of whatever else might be going on in the house. So, and I'll cue that into, if you're going to use the music with me and stick along with the Dark Side of the Moon, I'll give us a countdown to start that music when we get there. And so if you're okay with it, let's start in a child's pose position. And I should say, first cue is that only do the things that suit you. If something that I suggest doesn't feel right, or just you don't need to do it, then don't do it. Right? The practice is intended for you not to force, but for you to discover what is needed for you at the moment. And so again, if you're ready, we'll start in a child's pose position. There's different varieties of child's pose. They're actually different poses, but similar stuff. So you could have the knees very close together and let the torso kind of rest there on the thighs, and the arms could go out long, or you may bring the elbows out to the sides, or you may bring the hands back next to the hips. Another variety of the child's pose is to let the knees come very far apart and allow place for the torso to kind of sink in between the knees. And again, you have options where the hands go, where the arms go. So as you settle into that child's pose shape, maybe let a few breaths out through the mouth, to kind of clearing things, if you will. This kind of so make a distinction now in your mind that this next roughly 45-50 minutes is going to be all about you right there on the mat right now. Do make that initial observation of what's going on in your body, right? The conditions of the physical body. Do make an initial observation, the conditions of the breath. Is it moving fast? Is it moving slow? Is it steady and even, or is it disjointed in some places? And then make an observation of what's going on in your mind. Are you distracted by what has been going on? Is the mind more focused on something, or is it cloudy? So here in just a few moments, we'll take active control of the breath. We're going to use the Ujjayi technique. If you're going to use the Dark Side of the Moon album from Pink Floyd to accompany you, I'm going to give us a countdown to start that coming up here in just a couple seconds. So if you need to reach over to your audio device to put that on, here's your opportunity. And so we'll start just going straight through the album with this first song, Speak to Me, on countdown of 3, 2, 1, play. So if you've heard this album before, there's a lot of sound in the very first seconds, but it'll start to kick in. So now find your Ujjayi breath, right? That smooth, fluid breath coming through both nostrils equally, allowing the torso to expand on the inhale, allowing the torso to compress on the exhale. You want to stretch the edges of your breath here in the beginning of practice. How long can you make the inhale last? How long can you make the exhale last? How much air can you squeeze in? How much air can you squeeze out? You develop a little bit of a sound in the breath, right? In the back of the throat, that slight constriction. You can feel the breath, this kind of like an ocean. So bringing the breath into balance, a pace of around 4 seconds by 4 seconds. And then we're going to start to begin our movements, right? So on your next inhale, pull into an all fours kind of shape. On the exhale, let the hips go back to the heels. Again, perhaps a pace of 4 seconds by 4 seconds with your breath. You could go slower, 5s or 6s. If you're going faster, 2 or 3, that's okay. We don't want to force anything. But if you can, slow it down, right? And that's that fine line, learning not to force things, but learning to, kind of explore the edges of what could happen. So changing it up now on the next time you come into all fours. On the exhale, let the hips drop down and forward. Pause here, a little bit of upward facing dog. You want to be cautious not to bring the shoulders out like this in front of the wrists. You want the shoulders over or behind the wrists, and you want to be cautious not to let the elbows point out to the sides, but instead squeeze the elbows in towards the center line. If anything, the elbows can point backwards a little bit with the upper arm squeezing the torso. It's going to pull the outer edge of the collarbones and shoulders backwards, and the inner edge of the collarbone and heart pushes forward. Inhale back into the center. Exhale, hips to heels. Inhale into the center. Exhale, hips drop down and forward. Inhale into the middle. Exhale, hips to heels. So last time here, before we start to change things up, so as you come into that upward facing dog, as you come into that forward place, pause there. Let's find a little stretch here. Turn the face and look over the left shoulder, bend the right elbow, and let the right hip roll down towards the floor as you turn the torso more to that left side. Then straighten that right arm out, get that little stretch on the front outside edge hip, right side body. On your next inhale, come into the center, tuck the 10 toes underneath. As you exhale, round the spine like a cat, hips to heels, and pause here for a couple of breaths. Get that little stretch in the toes, but also get that kind of rounded stretch in the spine. And you'll notice it'll feel more vibrant or more stretchy in some places than in others. So maybe for you it's lower back or middle back or upper back. This is an opportunity, again, to observe, to understand what's going on in your own current situation. On the next inhale, pull back into all fours. On the exhale, let the hips drop down again. Pausing here, looking over the other shoulder, right shoulder. Bend that left elbow, let the left hip roll to the floor. Turn the torso to this right side. And let that left arm maybe straighten out, adding a little intensity to that stretch on the left side hip, side body. Inhale into the middle. On the exhale, hips to heels, child's pose. 10 toes turned underneath. Inhale, come into the center. On the exhale, let the hips now lift into downward facing dog. Couple of moments here in down dog. You might be static, non-moving, kind of building the pose, pressing into the hands, letting the elbows roll slightly in, retracting the shoulders into the torso, lengthening the torso itself. You may have a little bit of movement here. Your hips may go side to side. Again, or not. You may be still, not moving. You might bend one knee, push the other heel down towards the floor, getting a little extra stretch on the back of the leg. You, again, could let the hips move. You might be walking it out, going back and forth. If you're going with some kind of pattern like that, maybe keep moving with your breath. So maybe inhale, one thing happens. Exhale, something else happens. From here, moving to the front of the mat, tons of ways to do it. It could be lifting up on the toes, bend the knees, and hop the feet forward. It might be one foot steps all the way to the front, then the other foot steps to the front. It might be walk the feet up to the front. So you have options how you get there. Bring the hands onto the thighs, bring the torso higher than halfway. Pull the shoulder blades and elbows and back of the arms up towards the sky. So you end up with like almost T-Rex arms here. The idea is it's going to push the heart forward. Squeeze the belly button in towards the spine. Chin is in a 90 degree with the throat, and just lengthen the spine from here. Each time we come into that forward fold, this is the sensation I'd like you to find, is this lengthening of spine, and then let the body fold deeper into this thing. Bend the knees now and let the body round. Arms can hang down, or sometimes you'll even reach the arms back or even slightly wrap around behind the calves. So a different sensation in this forward fold, that rounded spine as opposed to that flat spine. We'll have a few places for each. From here now, let the arms start to reach forward, start to flatten the spine again. So pull the shoulder blades back up towards the sky. Heart pushes forward, belly squeezes inward. So we're in half chair, Ardha Utkatasana. Take the arms higher than the ears. Keep the knees bent now and bring the torso upright. Breath is still moving. We're about to come back into a little bit of movement. We just want to build these pieces so that we have a stable, firm foundation, right? So that we're not just kind of doing jumping jacks and flopping around, but we have firmness. Feet pressing, torso lengthening, fingertips reaching. On the next inhale, straighten the legs, look up towards the sky, maybe even a little back bend. On the exhale, let the arms come out wide if you have space, and let the heart lead you. That flat spine now folded in, hands can slide down the legs a little bit. Hang on to the legs wherever the hands are. Pull the body back upright, that flat spine. Plant the hands now, step back, downward facing dog. Bring the left foot forward, right foot turns flat, preparing for warrior one. Take the arms up by the ears, and then bring the torso and arms upright. Settle into your warrior one. Make any adjustments here. You definitely don't want this front knee in front of the heel like I'm trying to show there. You want it behind. Toes, left toe straight ahead. Right foot turned out at an angle. Not generally straight out and not generally toes pointed straight ahead, but someplace in between. You want the hips level to the floor, square to the front of the mats. If it's too intense with arms up over here, hands can come to heart center, hands can come to the hips, hands can come to the lower back, which actually could be a really useful platform for our next place. So now, let that front leg start to straighten out. Don't lock it out. Reach up through the fingertips. And then Parsvottanasana. So again, arms could be here or on the lower back. Keep the hips even. That flat spine. Just a little bit of a lean out. At first, no deeper than the plane of that back leg, that right leg. Then maybe take it a little bit deeper. Or halfway. or even deeper than that. We want to keep the body supported on its own if possible, so we don't want to have this thing going on, hands on the thigh, unless you absolutely need it. And again, arms can be extended out here. Let the hands come down to the floor. Step it back, downward facing dog. We're starting to move in just a few more moments. On the inhale, pull forward. On the exhale, elbows bent, chaturanga dandasana, knees drop. Inhale, upward facing dog. Exhale, downward facing dog. Let the right foot step forward, left foot turns flat. Arms come by the ears. Body comes up into our warrior one. Again, same little platform checks here. Right toes straight ahead, right knee behind the right heel. Hips square to the front of the mat, level to the floor. A lot of times those hips will try to turn open to the left side here. You may have to change the stance of the feet. So ideally, when we start to move with this thing, you're going to try to land all these little, perfect alignments. And that's one of the challenges. So again, hands could be on the hips, on the back, or heart center, or up over the head. Next, inhale, straighten out without locking that front leg. On the exhale, start to lean out. On the inhale, you're still leaning out here. On the exhale, hands come down, step back, downward facing dog. 2 breaths here in downward facing dog. And again, it's not just kind of, waiting for the next thing. There's an effort here. Pressing into the hands, elbows rotating in, hips lifting up into the sky. Now, on the end of that next exhale, let the feet come to the front of the mat. It might be that kind of walking, or it might be a big step, or it might be feet hop, front of the mat. Hang on to the shins. Inhale, flatten the spine. Exhale, fold down. Tiny little bend in the knees, arms go forward, inhale, rise all the way up to the top, that little back bend. Exhale, palms press, hands come down, heart center. Close the eyes, and for just a moment, reflect on what's going on in the body, what's going on in the breath, what's going on in the mind. Now we're going to take that same sequence and start to move with it now. Right, so breath is slow and steady, perhaps 4 seconds by 4 seconds, or slower if that's where you're at today. Next time we breathe in, let the hands start to drop down, and on the inhale, take the hands up over the head, maybe that little back bend. On the exhale, this is that rounded forward fold, so the body rounds over the bent knees. Then keep the knees bent, bring the arms up by the ears. Inhale, knees stay bent, rising into chair. Exhale, sit down into your chair. Inhale, legs straight and moving with the breath, that little bit of a back bend. On the exhale, 1, 2, 3, 4. Hanging on to the shins, lifting halfway up. On the exhale, hands come down, step back, downward facing dog. All in one inhale, left foot forward, arms reach forward, body rises upwards. A warrior one. Exhale, settle into warrior one. Inhale, front leg starts to straighten, arms reach backwards or come to the lower back. Exhale, starts your leaning out. You may get to an edge here potentially. Inhale here. On the exhale, hands come down, step it back, downward facing dog. Inhale, pull forward, upper push-up, or you can do this from all fours. Keep the elbows over the wrists, squeezing in, chaturanga. Inhale, arms straighten, lift the heart up, upward facing dog. Exhale, downward facing dog. Right foot steps forward, left foot turns flat, arms come by the ears, rising warrior one on this side. Exhale, settle in, firm up the shape. Inhale, straighten out, but don't lock out that front leg. Exhale, start your lean out forward. Inhale, reach through the fingertips. Exhale, step it back, downward facing dog. 2 breaths in this downward facing dog. One of the things that happens often here that we don't want to happen is the elbows will kind of turn out to the side and the arms become a little less active. We want to squeeze those elbows in towards each other without forcing anything to feel uncomfortable in the forearm or wrist or upper arm. After that second breath, exhale, let the feet find their way front of the mat. Hang on to the shins, inhale halfway up. Exhale, fold it down. Soft bend in the knees, arms go forward, rise all the way up. Palms press. Hands come down, heart center. Again, pause for a moment. So there's a structure in the body here when you're in this Tadasana, this mountain pose. So it's not just hanging out, resting, waiting for the next, thing. This is the thing. Right, mountain pose. And so you want to feel, without being rigid, without being, super engaged, like less than 10% intensity here, but you want to feel like a mountain. Feet grounding down, legs actively lifting the hips higher. Lower torso squeezes towards the center line and the pelvic floor draws up. Belly button squeezing towards the spine, towards the back body. Solar plexus draws up into the ribs. Heart pushes forward. Shoulders pulling back. Tops of shoulders down. Neck is long. Let the hands drop down. Let's come back into the movement. On the inhale, hands reach up towards the sky. That little back bend. On the exhale, come into forward fold. Soft round the spine. Keep the knees bent here. Inhale, arms forward, torso rises into Utkatasana, chair. Exhale, settle into chair, a little bit more firmness. Right, inhale, legs straighten, reach up tall, maybe some back bend in there. Exhale, arms out wide if you can. Heart leads you forward, flat spine, fold it down, hands onto the shins. Inhale, lift up a little bit, flatten the spine, lengthen the legs. Exhale, step it back. We'll go with the other foot forward here. So now right foot steps forward, left foot turns flat, arms by the ears. Within 4 seconds, you've risen to Warrior One. Settling into Warrior One on that exhaling breath. On the inhale, straighten the front leg. On the exhale, start to lean it out. Inhale, even more reach to the fingertips. Exhale, hands come down, step back, downward facing dog. Inhale, upper push up, elbows over the wrist. Keep the elbows over the wrist, Chaturanga Dandasana. Knees drop, tops of feet turn flat, upward facing dog. Exhale to downward facing dog. Left foot steps forward, right foot turns flat, arms come by the ears and torso rises. Exhale, settling in, make any adjustments. Inhale, front leg straightens. Exhale, slow, smooth. Inhale, lengthen, reach to the fingertips. Exhale, step it back, downward facing dog. Pausing for those 2 breaths here in downward facing dog. And again, it's not, just a kind of sort of space. This is the thing to be doing. This is the place. Press into the hands, elbows rotate in. You still have that length from the tailbone, through the navel center, through the heart, through the neck, all the way to the crown. At the end of that next exhale, feet hop to the front of the mat. Inhale, lift. Exhale, fold. We'll bend in the knees as the arms come forward, rise up. Exhale, palms press. Hands come down, heart center. And again, take a few moments to assess what's going on. Now, ideally, what happens is that as you practice, as you move through the asana, the physical poses, and you direct the breath in a specific way, your pranayama practice, and you bring your mind to focus right here, dharana, concentration, you start to partly make changes, but really you start to make connections. You become more aware of what's actually going on right there where you're at right now. Right now, this very moment is an amazing moment. You being alive right there, right now, is an amazing thing. And it's happening right here. And as we train ourselves to become more aware of how awesome it is simply just to be, this is the benefit that, springs this happiness and joy from our practice. So let's come back into it one last time. We're going to make some little changes here. We're going to hold the poses in a couple of spots. And so I'll give you that cue. Idea is there's structure in the whole body. So when we get especially to those places, we don't want any part of the body kind of hanging out. And again, I'll give you that cue. Palms pressing, heart center. Let the eyes flutter open. If they did close, drop the hands down. And then on the next inhale, same pattern. Inhale, reach up. Exhale, bend the knees, round the spine as you roll down. Keep the knees bent, hands come by the ears. Inhale, rising into chair. This is the first place we're going to pause. Exhale, sit into chair. Stay here in chair. Reach up through the fingertips, turn the palms to face forward, and now drop the elbows down. So like a goalpost kind of situation. Right, this kind of thing. Then from here, let the hands come all the way around behind the back. Grab either peace fingers or interlace a little bit, or even interlace to the palms. You could also put a towel or a strap between the hands here. This kind of thing. Right, push the hands down. Pull the shoulders back, heart forward. Straighten the legs. Look up towards the sky, bend backwards, push the hands downwards. Come back up to the top. Bring the chin to 90 degrees. Keep pushing the hands down. Then drop the chin towards the collarbone. A little subtle bend in the knees. And then let yourself fold out forward. Taking the hands off of the back, arms off of the back. Folding in, rotating the arms over the top. So if you're using a towel or a strap, sometimes you'll be able to get a little bit more rotation in things. Don't force it. Some of us are like hyper flexible and the hands are going to come all the way to the floor. Others are going to be like the hands don't even leave the back, and that's okay. It's an indication of where some of that tightness lives, and if you're like me and a lot of people, we carry some tightness in the shoulders and the upper back. That's why we're kind of exposing that stuff, getting to see what's actually going on. Release the hands down, bring the arms forward, rise back into your chair, set into chair, inhale, straighten the legs, exhale that swan dive all the way forward, fold hands coming onto the legs, inhale, flatten the spine, lengthen the legs, on the exhale, downward facing dog. Left foot steps forward, right foot turns flat, arms come by the ears and rise, warrior one. Exhale, settle into warrior one. Inhale, straighten this front leg. Pause here. So this is kind of the meat of this part of the practice, this Parsvottanasana. We're about to lean out forward. So you can keep the arms up here as we start to lean out. For some of us, that's a little bit too intense. Totally okay to bring hands onto the lower back. And actually, if you bring hands on the lower back, your arms will be a little bit like a weather vane, and you might see that the torso hips have kind of twisted open to that right side. You want to square things up. Press the feet apart, squeeze the legs together, front to back and side to side. Lengthen the spine. At first, just a little bit out here. Inhale, lengthen. Exhale, now take it a little deeper. Now again, we can have hands here on the back or arms extended forward. What you might start to notice here is that your left hip is going to try to pop over to the left side. It's going to try to go over and up, right? So the hips are going to try to do that. What we want to do, bring the hips back into the same plane. So push them over to the right side. Push the left hip a little backwards, maybe downwards instead of up. Maybe body folds even deeper into this thing. So you'll feel it. If the hips pop out to the side, it's going to be a little less intense. If you bring them back into the same plane, it's going to be more intense. And it's not about, how far forward folding you go. It's about, what sensations can you bring about. It's been a little while here, so hopefully you've, been hanging out, letting the pose do its thing. Release the hands down to the floor. Step back, downward facing dog. Inhale, upper push-up. Exhale, chaturanga. Inhale, Urdhva Mukha Savasana, upward facing dog. Exhale, Adho Mukha Savasana, downward facing dog. Right foot steps forward, left foot turns flat. Arms come by the ears and rise. Virabhadrasana A, Warrior One. Exhale, settle into your Warrior One. And then let that front leg on an inhale straighten, don't lock. Turn the palms to face forward. Drop the elbows down if you wish. You have the opportunity here now to either keep the hands up over the head or bring the hands to the small of the back. And you might notice some imbalance in the hips. You may notice an imbalance, not just physical structure, but maybe one side is kind of clenched up and the other side soft. We want both sides actively engaged. So that's the part. Feet pressing apart like you're trying to stretch the mat from corner to corner. But as the feet are pressing, the legs squeeze back towards each other, front to back, side to side. Action there at Mula Bandha, root lock, right? Squeezing in, lifting up. Uddiyana Bandha, navel center, squeezing in, lifting up. Jalandhara Bandha, heart pushing forward, shoulders back, neck is actively engaged. As you're ready, you'll start to lean out towards the pose here. I suggest at first maybe no deeper than that back plane, and maybe not even that deep, maybe here, right? If you're like, I can take it a little deeper and maintain this structure, you might fold towards like halfway. Now again, the things that are going to try to happen here is your right hip's going to try to push over to the right and lift up. So you want to push both hips over to the left side and perhaps push that right hip back and down a little bit. Your right knee sometimes will have a tendency to bend a little bit here. If you need that because of your knee, right, you have a situation, your knee says you have to bend because it hurts, then that's okay. But ideally, we want to keep that leg fairly straight, keeping the intensity on. You're holding this pose for these few moments while I'm talking with you. You're still breathing, pressing feet, squeezing legs, lengthen torso. Breath is smooth and fluid. Parsvottanasana, name of this pose. On your next exhale, release the hands down, step it back, downward facing dog. 2 breaths in this downward facing dog. End of that second exhale, feet make their way to the front of the mat. Hang on to the shins. Inhale, lift up a little bit. Exhale, pull down. Arms go forward, body rises, legs straighten. Palms press. Hands heart center. Close the eyes. Define structure. Feet pressing. Legs actively engaged, lengthen the torso, lengthen the neck, hands with that little pressure, shoulder blades pulling back, and it's subtle, right? You can notice, like you can make this shape and kind of sort of be like you're doing the shape, but you're not actually actively engaged, or you can be actively engaged. Remember, we want that engagement at less than 10% intensity, so it won't do us any good, at least for yoga purposes, to make that more intense, right? That'll make us more rigid. what we're trying to do is create this structure, right? So that things can get unstuck because of the structure of our body, the way it usually goes, the way it leans this way or that way or whatever. We're literally pulling that out of the physical body and the energetic body. So flutter the eyes open. Let the hands drop down. Now sweep the arms backwards, right? So this big, it's almost like, someone's holding onto your wrists and pulling the wrist back and you're pushing your heart forward. Chin is in a 90 degree with the throat, so not looking up and not looking down, but this kind of thing right here. And then let the hands sweep downwards, sweep forwards, sweep upwards. Find this bigger back bend, right? So reaching through the fingertips. Now you can stay here with the arms up. You can let the arms drop out to the sides. For today, what I'm going to suggest is let the fingertips come to touch and then bend the elbows, bringing the thumbs towards the nape of the neck. And it's just in that direction. The goal is not to touch the neck or anything. It might happen, just depends on your body. Lift the elbows, lengthen the legs, lengthen the torso. You may get even a little less back bend as you create that length. Try to keep that length, maybe a little bit more back bend, and then if it's okay, the arms can start to straighten and reach further back. As the arms extend backwards, that's going to allow gravity to pull you a little deeper into the back bend. Now let the arms drop down and open. Inhale, take the hands up over the head, straighten up the torso. Tadasana, mountain pose, hands come to heart center, coming into standing balance here. So we'll work with tree pose. So lift the left heel up, coming onto the left toes. So why we do it that way is instead of just picking the foot up right away, is we want to give an opportunity to find that structure. Right leg strong, supporting the weight, torso strong, palms pressed, shoulders pull back, left knee starts to pick up. Now we can do this with or without the hands helping the leg. It's just a matter of what you're looking for in your practice. Right? So you might take the hands and draw that knee a little higher. Right? That gives a little bit more intensity. Or you may be like, no, I'm not using the hands. I'm just going to use the adductor muscles and let it happen that way. From here, again, with or without the hands, so you can palms press and do this without using the hands, or left hand comes to that inside left thigh and slowly takes the knee out to the side. Why we might want to do that is because sometimes if we're just taking the leg out, it'll end up here and not in the same plane with the body, but kind of angled forward. And we want it this way. Right hand might come to the right hip, and you pull the right hip back. And so you find this shape where the leg and torso are all in this same plane. Now this left foot, several places we could go. We could go toes to the floor and heel on the right calf, kind of a kickstand. Or we can go sole of the left foot on the right calf. Or we can go sole of the left foot up here inside the right thigh, but don't put it on the knee. And that's why I'm kind of giggling, because today that's not really where I need to be. So I'm going to take it right here on the calf. Now you can keep the hands here. You get hands at heart center. You might drop hands back and down, that kind of thing we just did. You might let the arms go out to the sides, T-shape, or up towards the sky. Find stability. Right, stick with it. So as you're sticking with this pose, recognize, are there places that something is kind of softened? Did the right side, lower torso just kind of collapse? We want to keep that length. So we'll see if we can get out of it in a similar way that we got into it. So the hands could return to heart center potentially. Left foot comes off the right leg. Left knee comes back forward. For a moment here, let that left leg straighten out. And then let the left foot come down to the floor. Release the hands. Probably want to shake out that right leg. Find your Tadasana again, mountain pose. Right? Again, it's a defined shape, not just kind of sort of standing here with hands touching, but that structure. Pick the right heel up. So you feel now more weight in that left leg. Left leg gets strong, takes on the weight. Right toes pick up. So again, with or without the use of the hands, I like using the hands because of the alignment things it does for us. So, maybe that right hand takes the right knee out to the right side. Left hand can come to the left side hip. Open them up. Again, leg in the same plane, right leg in the same plane with the body. You can kickstand the toes, or heel on the calf, or heel up there in the inner left thigh, but not on the knee, right? Super important to not put it on the knee. We don't want, dangerous situations for the knee. Your arms can heart center, drop down, or back, or to the sides, or up to the sky. And just stick with it. Stability. Right? If you think about trees, stable, and that stability for the tree doesn't come so much up here, although there is structure. That stability is that groundedness. And that's why we're doing this pose right now here towards the latter part of the practice, is for that sensation of the connection. You feel the weight of the body pressing down through that left foot. You feel the strength and support of the earth coming through that left foot, through the left leg. See if we can come out of it with control. Perhaps palms come back to heart center. Right foot comes off the left leg. Right knee comes back into the center. Right leg might extend out, that little flex, top of the foot towards the shin. Heel presses away. Then let the foot come down, release the hands, shake out that left leg. We're coming down to the very latter parts of the asana part of practice here. So we'll make our way back down towards the floor. On your next inhale, take the hands up, reach up, that back bend again. On the exhale, reach out forward, come into that rounded kind of cat shape. From here, put the hands onto the shins, lift the body halfway up. Last one of these, flatten the spine, lengthen the legs, chin in that 90-degree, shoulder blades back up to the sky, heart pushing forward, belly squeezing inwards. On your next exhale, let the hands come down to the floor, downward facing dog, and then come down to all fours. Let the left toes extend on the mat behind you. Push through the left heel. Then pull the body away from that left heel. So you're trying to create that little stretch here on the side, something in the body, in the hip, in the leg. Then pick that left foot up off the floor. Press through the left heel, flex the top of the left foot towards the left shin. Now check it out. We're going to turn the left toes to the left side. You can even look to the left side a little bit if you need to. Lift that left leg higher. And then with control, so there's a structure, flexing that foot, left foot, with control, bend the knee and bring the knee towards the left elbow. On an inhale, take it back up to the sky. On an exhale, bring it forward. Stay here. Now, don't Charlie horse yourself, so you have to respect what's going on. If it's okay, let that left leg now start to extend straight out to the left side. Sole of the left foot pushing towards the left side wall, wherever you are. Lift the left leg higher. Flex the top of the foot towards the shin. Take the toe tips more towards the front of the mat. Stay here. You're trying to find some stuff going on there in the left cheek. Hard to do with the one hand on the floor. Then slowly from here, take that leg back behind you. Press through the heel, straighten it out there. And then bring that left knee, left shin, left foot up here to the front edge of the mat. Coming into what's sometimes called seated pigeon. By the way, blankets or blocks could be useful in this pose, believe it or not. And I'll show you that here in just a second. Some of you may have done this pose before and are ready to get to your deeper spot. I would recommend to make the initial place fairly intense. So you want your hips level, so don't have the left hip lower than the right hip. You can use the back foot to kind of walk us back. You're creating sensation in that left side hip. I like to do fingertips tall here. We'll let the torso get a little longer. You can bend the elbows, however, for a moment and let the body kind of sink down. Where you might use that block or blanket or whatever is underneath this left side cheek or thigh. if it's off the floor. It's not actually making the pose less, it'll make the pose more because you can literally sit the weight down into that place. You might re-lengthen the spine and then slowly start to work your way out forward. And it might be that you're just, almost straight up and down. That could be a fairly intense option. Maybe that you're halfway to the floor, or you may go deeper. You can add a modification of taking the hands and body over to the left side a little or a lot, or perhaps you go exactly the opposite, over to the right side a little or a lot. And now, once you've found this place, I'm going to ask you to stick with it. That breath is smooth and fluid. You're making any structural adjustments to keep that intensity going on, the intensity of the stretch. As you're ready. And that means you can stay here longer. Sometimes this pose is deeply meaningful. You may need a few more moments. Right? So you have that opportunity. If you're ready to come out of it, that happens slowly. You're going to want to let that left leg come back to life. You might kind of roll around on the toes, move the ankle joint, move the knee around, let that hip release a little bit of that intensity that you've just felt. Once you feel that left leg is kind of come back to normal, to neutral, doesn't feel so inflamed, if you will, then take the right toes on the mat behind you. Similar little stuff here. And I mean similar because it might be a little different on this side than the other side. So your options, how you do it, might be a little different. Pull the crown of the head forward, push through that right heel, then pick the right foot up, flex the top of the right foot towards the shin. Toes pointed down for the moment, push through the heel, and then let the right toes turn to that right side. Lift the right leg higher up into the sky, smooth and with control. So not, this, but slow. Bring that right knee bent towards the right elbow, right tricep. On the inhale, slowly straighten the leg back out. And slowness is what creates the tension. Bring it back forward. Pause here. And then now, let that right leg extend out to the right side. Sole of the right foot pressing towards the wall. Top of the foot flexing towards the shin. Lift the right leg higher. Bring the right toes more towards the front of your mat. Feel that intensity. Then take that right leg straight back. Then bend the knee. Bring the knee, shin, and foot down towards the front edge of your mat. So similar adjustments, don't just jump into your deepest place. And why not? Is because you can elicit a strong response here. Remember, you might put your blocker blanket underneath the right cheek. Use the left foot to walk back. Try not to be uneven in the hips. You might let the weight of the body sit down. You might let the weight of the legs just release into that block or blanket. From there, again, fingertips will allow you to lengthen the torso a bit more, and then start that journey outwards. And like, I know that I can get a pretty deep stretch, going closer to the floor, but I'm also able to find a pretty deep stretch right here. So I don't want to, rush past this place. I want to let it happen. So generally, it takes 3 or 4 kind of breaths, roughly, to kind of get into that deep stretch pose, right? You want to find just the right adjustments and make sure that you're going to be able to be stable in that shape and that it doesn't hurt, right? There's definitely an intensity, but it shouldn't hurt. Then after you've, taken those 3, 4 breaths to kind of get things adjusted just right, then you're going to hang out in the pose for 10 breaths. Maybe hang out in the pose is not the right verbiage, because it isn't just hanging out. There's an activity there, right? The back toes pressing down, back leg getting longer, front leg, right leg pressing into the mat. Torso has an active engagement from the roots, through the navel center, through the heart and shoulders and neck, and even in the arms and hands. If they're extended out, they're reaching. If they're, touching down, there's a little pressure down. Again, all this structural stuff, less than 10% intensity. And while all that's going on, of course, you have the effect of the pose. You're feeling that stretch in the right side glute or wherever. Your breath is smooth and fluid. And you may find that it doesn't always want to be smooth and fluid when you're in these deep stretches. Stick with it. Allow the pose to reveal the places where the tension's at. But also, in that revelation, in that recognition, right, you paying attention to it, there's the space to release and to let it go. And you may even have like an internal mantra, a saying in your head, something like, let go, release. So take your time. If you need a little more time on this side, maybe you're even going to finish your practice here. That's okay. If you're ready to come out, go slowly, mindfully, meaning you're paying attention to what's going on as you start to unravel. From here, you might kind of just roll over onto that right cheek, bring the legs around out in front of you, and head towards our final few shapes as we start to slide towards Shavasana. So as we come onto our backside, soles of the feet on the floor, knees pointed up towards the sky, hands down next to the hips. For a moment, just soften, let it all go, release, relax. Then press into the feet, let the legs have a little squeeze towards each other, and then allow the hips to lift up into the sky. Palms coming down on the mat. Lift the heart. And then from here, slowly roll the spine down to the floor. Coming into our inversion here, Your inversion, different possibilities for sure. You could do a three-quarter shoulder stand or plow pose if that's something you regularly do. Given that I'm not in a room with you, to make sure you're doing that safe and not hurting your neck, I'm going to offer a couple of more gentle inversions. And so you might go knees in towards the chest, hands down next to the hips, Apanasana. You could also take hands onto the shins if that feels better. You could take legs up into the sky. This one's sometimes called waterfall. You could do arms and legs, or arms could come down next to the body. But this general idea is it's not like a leg lift where you're feeling the abs do work and the lower back do work, but it's where literally the legs become dead weight and you can feel this kind of grounding down effect. And that's all you're looking for right here is that sensation of things flowing down towards the earth. And once you've kind of felt that sensation, then you can let the body come down and find the shape that you're going to use for Shavasana. Traditional Shavasana shape, one you'll see a lot is the feet out long, a little like to the outer edge of the mat, and the feet kind of flop to the side and palms turn to face up, hands, somewhere next to the body or even further out, almost even in T shape. If this irritates your lower back, like a lot of us it does, then you can use this other option, soles of the feet on the floor, feet fairly wide, maybe outer edges of the mat, and the knees buckle in towards each other just softly. So it's not an effort, it's just letting them come in, and that'll kind of pull the hips a little bit wider and take some of the pressure off the central back. There are other possibilities here. You could do Supta Baddha Konasana with the soles of the feet together, the knees butterfly open. If you do that one, I would suggest put some blocks or blankets under the knees. You could also do a reclined lotus. So you put one foot, or that's a half lotus, one foot into a hip crease or knee crease. You could do both feet into hip or knee creases. But you don't want your Shavasana shape to be something that is forced. It should be soft, relaxing, conducive to letting go. And so here, let the breath become effortless. Let the body, like the breath, become without effort. Softening any engagements, any clenching of the feet or hands or face or shoulders or wherever. And just allow yourself these few moments to appreciate the divinity, the amazingness of you, of literally you right now, right there where you're at, being alive. So it's your class, your practice. If you choose to stay still longer, please do. Don't feel compelled to come out of this until you're ready. When you do become ready, let movement come back into the body very gradually. Fingers and toes, hands and feet, wrists and ankles. You may get to a situation where the arms extend back behind the head. You might reach long through the legs and the toes point away from the fingertips. You could draw the knees in towards the chest. From there, you might roll over through your right side. And then from there, you might end up in an easy cross-legged seated position. So again, don't feel compelled to come out of your Shavasana. If you're staying there, stick with it. If you do come to seated, let the eyes be closed. Bring the torso to that place of length. Very soft engagement from the root, through the navel center, through the heart and neck. Let the chin drift down towards the center of the collarbones. Always gratitude to yourself for your practice. Without you making the effort, choosing to do it and actually doing it, it doesn't happen. And so thank you for that. Thanks to yourself. Then thanks to everyone else who's practicing yoga or meditation or Tai Chi or whatever it is that they're doing to polish their piece of the universe, because we're all in the same universe, and so we appreciate the effort of others doing similar work that you yourself are doing. And then the final thing is that recognition that the essence of each of us is this shining divine light. And so we recognize the divinity within each of us with the word Namaste. So thanks very much, guys. Happy Friday to you. Have a good weekend. Whenever you see this, maybe you're not watching on Friday. If you'd like to make donations to support your yogi, LJ Hash, you certainly can at Venmo. It's LJ Hash Hash, Hash. You can also do it on PayPal. It's at PayPal, it's just LJ Hash. So if you'd like to make a donation and you can afford it in these trying times, please do. And if not, no worries. Just keep practicing. That's the most important thing. Thanks again very much, guys. We'll see you again soon. Tomorrow is a Zoom class at 10:30, Vinyasa Flow. So a little bit like today, but with a little bit more deep stretch kind of stuff going on. So we'll see you then. Thanks a lot.